Well, hello, that's me again. Today is November 25th, 2025, and it is a couple days before the Turkey Day, before Thanksgiving. So this is my video, which probably will be uh, final before the whole Thanksgiving festivity, so to speak, and before I stop myself with turkey and gravy and become the stuffed turkey myself. So it's gonna be like couple 3 days of the break between my videos. I might actually, depending on the situation with the alcoholic intoxication and the amount of the whatever the name of this hormone which makes you sleepy, I might still make the video depending on the circumstances and of course the events which will require immediate attention. But probably next time you will see me will be somewhere probably not Friday even, probably Saturday. So, but we'll see. I'm just saying that, if I disappear for a few days, it's nothing wrong with it. And in plans also, all kinds of things. I will have a number of interviews, including what is tentatively set as George Galloway's appearance on his mod of all talk shows. And so, there is a lot that is going on, and I want to start today with some very pleasant things. Russian Defense Ministry released, you remember the song, I'm Russian Drone, Don't Be Afraid. If you want to see it in a full detail, you can go and to my website, my blog, and you will see yourself access there to full-length videos. Granted, they are in Russian, but this family have been successfully, as you know, extricated from the horrendous situation. Its actual operation lasted for 3 months because they have been constantly under the control of the armed terrorists from the armed forces of Ukraine. And as they themselves say, and you will see yourself, they tried to kill them. And so by that time, the guy who was in charge of this, probably battalion commander, his call sign is Pomor, which is the Northern Marine Man from Russian, Russian North. That's what Pomor stands for. And the other guys who are Balu, and of course the guy who actually drove this drone now, which is with the song which actually becoming viral, and his call sign is Out, and he was the guy, and he explained that our task is to save civilians, and from who to save those civilians, from what now Russians call armed forces of Ukraine, nothing but terrorist organization, because they are. This is the result of West curators who thought that they can defeat Russians. Well, you cannot fix it. Well, basically stupid. So here they are. This is what is happening now. And if you want to see that this family is not only safe, and they are really grateful and happy that they are finally home, so you can go to my blog and see for yourself. Meanwhile, the situation continues to deteriorate for armed forces of Ukraine. You saw yourself what the road, so to speak, out of Mirnograd. They still think that they can get out of Mirnograd. Looks like. So, and Russians already told them over radio channels, they drop all those leaflets saying that, don't even try. You're all going to get killed. Just surrender. Well, some of them, they are so brainwashed, and they still believe in these fairy tales about the West somehow helping them. They are being reduced, and I understand it sounds horrible, but this is what it is. I mean, and the situation continues to deteriorate in terms of the energy crisis for Ukraine. As you can see yourself, all kinds of things fly into Ukraine, and it will continue. It doesn't matter what the West does. And if you go yesterday to my interview with Colonel Daniel Davis and my other statements, I now probably will have a blister on my tongue repeating the same old, which is no go. Russians officially, they officially confirmed that they received the so-called peace plans through the unofficial channels. And as you remember yesterday, and everybody, Ushakov stated, it's no go. European, it's not a plan. It's all kind of BS. And we have to understand what is going on the battlefield. So if you go First, we take a look at the tally as now traditional. Today, as you can see yourself, this is uh, the November 25, and yeah, as you can 419 drones they launched in Russia. All of them have been shut down. The only thing, I believe, one or two leakers, guess what, they hit civilian buildings. Their task is to kill civilians. This is how NATO plans its operation, because they are not that good at real war. So it is pure and simple terrorism. So as you can see yourself, over today is, well, it's kind of getting close to the close in Russia. It's 1,345 killed and wounded. Most of them are killed. And they also got one of the MLRS, multiple launch rocket systems. I don't know which one. I have to wait and see what their proper contacts will confirm, but it doesn't matter. It could be another ATACMS, it could be what have you, So, and you can go and find, especially if you have Telegram channel account, granted, you know where to go. I do not want to promote my Telegram channel, but obviously I try to be as prudent as possible, and I know when the information is true or when it is not. And very few of those Telegram channels really know what they're doing. One of them, of course, is the Russian Defense Ministry, but they are extremely standoffish because they are very conservative in their estimates, but they do provide some of the videos. But videos from the front line, well, you know already a couple of those guys, which of course are Colonel Popov and Marat Khairulin. You can go to also visit some of the Telegram channels of my good friends, Colonel Vladimir Trukhan, Colonel Oleg Shalandin, and some other people. You will see yourself who they are. And so after this tally, what do we have? Here we go to, as I already stated, to our friend Marat Khairulin and Colonel Popov. This is yesterday. So keep in mind again, this is yesterday's map. That means what? It's probably lagging behind the real situation on the ground by about 72 hours at least. But here we are. As you can see yourself, Zaporozhye operational axis is extremely active. As you can see yourself, there's this MLRS shown there at the Gulipoli, which was annihilated. And as you can see yourself, also number of the cauldrons are forming. And what is the most important, the Gulipoli, they call it small town. It's allegedly it's 12,500 population, but it is critical in a sense that Gulipoli has a very big significance in the history of Ukraine and the history of the early Soviet state. And this is why it is very significant. Gulipoli will fall, obviously we know that. And here it is. It is about Makhnovschina. Gulipoli was the main city for the development of the Makhnovschina movement. As I use here the Wikipedia because it's generally correct in on this explaining what Makhnovschina was. It was a huge actually phenomenon in during the early years of the obviously World War I and Russia's Civil War and Soviet Russia Civil War. And Makhnovschina, as they call it, recognized is there was a mass movement to establish anarchist communism during the Ukrainian War of Independence. They call it now Ukrainian War of Independence, 1917-1921, which actually is totally fits the Ukrainian national character and their history. Named after Nestor Makhno, the commander-in-chief of the Revolutionary Insurgent Army of Ukraine. Its aim was to create a system of free Soviets that would manage the transition towards a stateless and classless society. It controlled territory in southern and eastern Ukraine. Well, guess what? Gulipoli was actually their main base, so to speak, and it became associated with this Makhnovschina movement, which perfectly describes the aspirations of whatever the Ukrainians had then, and that was actually live without any laws and not caring about anything, just caring about themselves. Here's the photograph of Nestor Makhno with his surrounding. There's pretty doomsday looking people, and Makhno was from the very poor and peasant origins, and he obviously was associated, as they say, with the French anarchist movement. Well, because you know what, all those things, they don't require very serious, academic, so to speak, education or background to grasp all those things. But yeah, Makhnovschina was known primarily for the robbing people, just kind of all kind of activities. People say that Makhno, who died in 1945, he had allegedly had syphilis, but I don't know. But he was a very hysterical guy. He evidently had some issues, well, psychiatric issues, evidently. And many people say that actually the way he was portrayed in the very famous Soviet movies like Road to Calvary and things of this nature are very well accurate about him. The guy was actually a downright nut job. And you have to be nut job if you believe, if you can build on the backward, semi-literate, if not literate at all, population of all those what is called Malorussia lands, some Ukrainian nation which would live stateless and classless. That was the type of the, zeitgeist, if you wish, in those times. And yeah, Gulipoli holds a very important, so to speak, symbolic significance for the whatever Ukrainians are. And so, yeah, Russians will take this too, and they are not in rush. And but who are in Russia are obviously people from all kinds of the Western countries, and they continue to actually come up with all kinds of garbage essentially. And so Mr. Lavrov actually comes out today, and he talks about Mr. Macron, and we know who Macron is, and he talks about that Lavrov called Macron's statement about introduction of troops into Kiev and Odessa dreams. And so, yeah, he talks about those. He is a hot air balloon, this bank teller French boy from the, well, people say it's he is connected with the globalist capital, which probably he is. And yeah, he is not a statesman. Europe doesn't have statesmen. They don't understand what statesmanship is. So we have those boys, those teenagers with a bizarre deviant behavior, who Macron still dreams about introducing his pathetic army into Odessa and Kiev. Sure, good luck. And that's why Mr. Lavrov had to come out today and says that, yeah, it's just dreams. He didn't say it wet dreams, but that's what they are, wet dreams. Any French contingent which ever appears on the territory of Ukraine will be annihilated, period. They all will be killed. And I will touch upon this. So Lavrov stressed that Macron made a most aggressive statement. Well, the smaller Chihuahua is, smaller the Chihuahua, the more aggressive it is. And calling Russia the only problem for Ukraine and accusing Moscow of a strategic confrontation with Europe. The French president, according to him, announced his intentions to send troops to the area of Kiev and Odessa after reaching a settlement. No, there will be no NATO troops there, period. If they appear there, even with or without settlement, they all will be killed, period. Macron doesn't understand that. Neither does, obviously, French army and their chief of the general staff, General Mandon. And so what we have, one of the last vestiges of the Ukrainian honor and integrity, and he is a former French, well, he is not former, he is a French aristocrat, Philippe de Villiers, I believe. Our French friends will correct me if I pronounce him actually wrong or something like that. So, and he talks about in the a couple days ago that essentially General Mandon must resign. I agree. General Mandon is nothing but the empty pants, and as I already stated, if not for the the French nuclear deterrent, which is essentially was granted to France by the last great French man, Charles de Gaulle, who essentially made France independent nuclear power. Other than that, I mean, General Mandon commands the force which is laughable. And he correctly states, de Villiers, he correctly states, we signed this imbecilic pact with Ukraine for 160 or 150 Rafales. He said, we only have 102. How are we supposed to provide it? I can tell you, you're not. And he brings this up, saying that essentially Mandon wants to fight Russia. I don't know. The French general staff has to take basic courses in the operation planning and operation, and understand that they're not going to last more than 2 weeks as the unified military force. And France, well, evidently has the best, or better yet, better troops, if you wish, better armed forces than the rest of the NATO. Obviously, we're not talking seriously about Bundeswehr, which trains with the those guns made out of cardboard, and United Kingdom or Italians. So. And here we are. We have the French aristocrat calling on Mandon to resign. Well, I don't know. So it's pretty French thing, if you wish. And so Mr. Lavrov have to go back again on record, and he talks about that corruption schemes which have been exposed. He says that Ukrainian corruption schemes could have beneficiaries in EU. Well, Sergei Viktorovich, you can be more straight. We know you can. That not could have beneficiaries, but there are beneficiaries in EU who are doing this for the money laundering and enriching themselves, because everything in Europe today, top, bottom, from the European Commission down to the specific parliaments and governments of each separate country, is utterly corrupt. They are cowards, they are morons, but they know how to steal money. And so he is talking about that Brussels is seeking to scrape together 135 billion euros to prop up Kiev through 2026 and 2027. Again, they don't understand, those people, that money do not play that much of the role anymore, except for the paying some whatever bureaucracies in Kiev, whatever is left of them. So, but yeah, they don't have any ability to provide anything tangible for prevent what is happening right now, collapsing of the front. And so he says it was recently discovered that yet another 100 million were spent on bribes to the corrupt officials, Lavrov told the French-Russian Dialogue Association. Did anyone from Brussels bureaucrats or from those nations that pump Ukraine full of money explain it to their taxpayers that they have to endure and suffer? Maybe there are some beneficiaries as well. I rule out nothing. And we know that there are. We know that it is a money laundering scheme from the get-go. And what can I say? Well, yeah, they still continue to believe into those fairy tales that they have some kind of the ability to influence and prop up the Nazi regime militarily and economically. They are not bright people, and so the only thing, as I already stated, they know how is to enrich themselves, but usually by the all those dirty schemes, because none of them is capable to produce anything of value which actually improves the state of their own nation states, their nations. And if you look again, as I already stated, on France, it's the nation which is circling the drain, despite the fact that it still retains some technological expertise and some outputs of tangible things. But as a system, it's done. And then we have to wait and see. And it's up to French. If they want to die as a nation, hey, you know what? Good riddance. But it's completely on them, not on somebody else who have to come in and save them. You don't want to save yourself, just die. This is how life works. And there is no, well, how to say it, humanity attached to it. So, and that's exactly what is happening to Europe. And while it is happening to Europe, as you can see yourself, we have all kinds of the very interesting things happening on the front also, which, of course, now you can see yourself this, it's making the rounds around the internet, which is, of course, the art of war, Green Zoo. Obviously, Zelensky says, when a city is surrounded, it is strategically unimportant. Correct. I mean, yeah, why don't you just denounce all those cities which Russians are liberating and say that that's it? As you can see yourself, for example, this was the one Russian POW. The guy is from Caucasus. He had been taken POW. He was wounded. He was there in the captivity for 4 days. After that, he said enough is enough. He killed one of his captives and took the prisoner another one. The guy is actually Spaniard. Look at him. He's pretty small, but yeah, he's Spaniard. This is what the armed forces of Ukraine look like today. But as you saw yourself, all kinds of things are happening in Kiev, and with the energy infrastructure, you can also see that Russians launch all kinds of the nasty things. In this particular case, it's from the road set from Novorossiysk, one of the 8 calibers 3M14s are flying to visit Ukraine, all kinds of the drones such as geraniums, and absolutely no air defense, because Russians suppressed it. There are still some couple air defense complexes here and there, hiding in ambushes or hiding between the residential buildings, but that's about it. Now, if you take a look attentively at the graphic of the armed forces of Ukraine launches of everything they have, from drones to what have you, you can see yourself its accumulated graphic and graph rather, and as you can see yourself, the trend is obviously, obvious, if you wish, and they are declining in every means of the whatever they have. They primarily now operate drones. They have some artillery left, but that's just the reality of the front there. And here we come to basically the juncture of which, what, I talk about it non-stop. I probably already have a blister on my tongue explaining this to you. What is strategy? What is strategy? I mean, well, it's a general plan. It's something which you put in, in action to achieve some kind of your objectives. It doesn't matter if you solve the, let's say, differential equation, you have some kind of strategy, or if you build some kind of the industrial plant, let alone when you have the global military conflict, when you have the combined West and on one side, and on the other side, obviously, you have Russia. So what is this? Well, it's the plan which also has to clearly state what kind of resources you allocate or what can you rely upon to achieve your goals. This is the science which does not exist as for strategic forecasting and strategic intelligence in the West, combined West, including in the United States, as craft, period. Those people who are at the top, they are absolutely incompetent. But Russians knew it. I mean, Russians have been doing this for millennium, essentially. And so they know what kind of resources they have. They know what you need to do. And so guess what? The chief or the CEO of the ginormous, one of the largest corporations in the world, of the Rostec, Российские технологии, which is Mr. Chemezov. Look what he says. And he is the guy who, under his auspices, under the essentially, it's what they say, daibatsu or whatever in Japan. So this is Russian daibatsu. He employs something in excess of 600,000 people, and this is the enterprises which produce anything from the combat aircraft to commercial aircraft to the ships to radio electronics to air defense systems to what have you, everything. And so he talks about in his interview today that Russia is producing arms and volumes its adversaries could not dream of. And so what he says, we're supplying aircraft, tanks, infantry, vehicles, howitzers, electronic warfare systems, drones, and much more in enormous quantity. No country in the world today produces as many shells and aerial bombs, he said. I can give specific figures, of course, which is correct. He can't. It's the state secret. So I will put it this way. Our adversaries could not have dreamed of such volumes, the Rostec chief added. And he is absolutely correct. And that was in plans from the get-go. And for some, and I understand, many people still exploit, and it's absolutely normal, make no mistake. They still exploit the topic of the Minsk 1, Minsk 2, negotiations and the settlements and those agreements, which were supposed to stop the bloodshed since 2014. I have news for you, people. Russia was doing, the only thing was, what trying to do since 2014 is to buy itself time. And so everybody knew Minsk 1, Minsk 2 will be violated. The West is, well, anything signed with the West is not worth the paper it's signed on. And so the whole theater, kabuki theater of all those negotiations have been, of course, about as you may understand, procrastination, buying peaceful time to, turning the Russian economy and Russian industries, some of them creating a new, onto the military footing, and in such way that if you take a look again today at the Russian economic situation, it's pretty good, actually. No, make no mistake, I'm not trying to put the rosy picture on it. No, 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 no. It's obvious that there are some problems which have to be addressed, and they are being addressed as we talk right now. There are structural problems, there are some financial problems, but overall, Russian economy produces enormous industrial output, gigantic, and that is beyond the reach, not only in terms of some things. Well, okay, I'll give you one example. Russia is the only country in the world which actually has the full indigenous capacity to produce commercial aircraft, from engines to systems to avionics to what have you. And this is just one thing. Even Airbus's consortium, even the some of the best Boeing aircraft, from 787 to 777, which I love dearly, it's a wonderful aircraft, and to engines from Pratt and Whitney to General Electric, they are also produced in cooperation. Russians produce it on their own, and then of course there are weapons, and then suddenly the whole thing is, my God. And yes, I can tell you immediately, I don't know the specific number, I know the order of magnitude. In terms of bombs, shells, in terms of the standoff smart munitions, all those wonderful laser guided, GLONASS guided, what have you, sophisticated systems which are also electronic warfare resistant, Russia produces combined West with the United States by an order of magnitude at least. Order of magnitude is what? When you multiply things by 10. And this is what is happening. And this is what, for example, Sarah Payne cannot understand when she says that, oh, yeah, you know what? Putin should have taken care of his roads in Russia. She still lives in 1990s. She doesn't understand the subject. And here is the demonstration. While all this is happening, Russians built the longest highway. And this is highway. I mean, sometimes 4 lanes, sometimes at 6, and it's from St. Petersburg to Vladivostok. This is 12,000 kilometers. So divided by 1.6, you get the number, right? So, and this is unprecedented. And guess what? Russians build it, and it's now reaching Tumen, and then on to Novosibirsk, and further and further and further until it hits Vladivostok. This is kind of, Trans-Siberian, if you wish, express lane, and yes, 12,000 kilometers. Just think about it. So this is unbelievable. Just to give you an example, when I was driving from, let's say, Seattle to Los Angeles, and I did many times, it's about, 1,200 miles. You multiply it by 1.6 roughly, you have about, 1,800, 1,900 kilometers. It's still long, and I-5 is a wonderful drive. I love it. That is 6 times longer. Okay, so, and more than 6 times. And this is just the demonstration of how it all works and why they cannot understand, cannot wrap their brains around it. But when you have even Besant, this, pardon my French, clown, who is financial minister in Trump administration and who is obsessed with tariffs because, again, he is just, whiteboard guy who never dealt with anything tangible in his life. And he admits that, well, yeah, those sanctions failed utterly. Well, yeah. Didn't we, how to say it? Didn't we warn about it? Well, there you go. And so, what can I say? I'm entering the. I love this. I love Thanksgiving. It's a wonderful American tradition. And don't start here about these Indians and all that. It was actually, it's wonderful holiday. So don't start, with all those political things. It's just wonderful Turkey Day, okay? And people are relaxed and celebrate. And so I want to wrap it up before I go into the, stuffing myself with turkey. And maybe I'm not sure I want to with smoking a cigar and have a couple shots of Jack Daniels. Here is me, totally, satisfied, self-contained, and being very much, in the state of the, didn't I tell you so? Resting and, being very smug. And so, what can I say? People say, oh, you are triumphant that, basically, if you warned about it. Yes, I warned about it. I wrote 4 books. I'm writing the fifth one. All this is in very initial stages, and it's going to be a long process because I wanted to, and I will employ people with the extraordinary military expertise writing parts of it. So, but yeah, it's the situation which I have reasons to be satisfied. So, and this is how I want to wrap up this session today, if you wish. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee and two. And what can I say? Happy Thanksgiving. Just have fun, relax, enjoy it while we can. I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye bye.